Have you ever known someone who always seems to be the victim? No matter what happens, it's always someone else's fault. The world is against them, and they're constantly wronged. From the outside, it might look like they're just being dramatic or trying to get attention. But what if I told you that this victim mentality is rarely a conscious choice? Psychology shows us that it's often a deep-seated defensive identity, a survival strategy forged in the fires of long-term powerlessness. It's not a performance to get sympathy. It's the psyche's desperate attempt to make sense of a world that once felt too overwhelming to control. Today, we're going to explore the 8 hidden psychological mechanisms behind the victim stance. Understanding this is crucial not to excuse behavior, but to build empathy and find a path toward healing. The first and most fundamental reason is an early experience of having no agency. Imagine being a child in an environment where your actions have no real impact. Your parents' decisions are arbitrary, your feelings are ignored, and your boundaries are constantly crossed. You learn a devastating lesson: trying doesn't change anything. Your psyche internalizes a core belief: no matter what I do, I have no influence. As an adult, this belief doesn't just vanish, it transforms. The person no longer consciously thinks, "I am helpless," but instead, their entire life story becomes a demonstration to the world that they are always the one who is wronged. It's a tragic echo of a childhood where their own will was powerless. The second mechanism is building an identity around suffering. Think about it. If the only times you received attention, care, or protection were when you were hurt, what does your brain learn? It begins to connect suffering with connection. Pain becomes a relational language. This isn't because someone enjoys suffering, quite the opposite. It's because suffering is the only way they feel seen, heard, and validated. Over time, being a victim stops being a temporary state. It solidifies into a fundamental way of being in relationships. A familiar role that, while painful, at least guarantees some form of human connection, even if it's rooted in pity. The third and very powerful element is frozen anger. A person in a victim role is often someone who, in their past, was never allowed to defend themselves. They couldn't protest, they couldn't set boundaries, they couldn't say no. Expressing anger was either dangerous, leading to punishment, or completely useless, leading to being ignored. So that anger had to be suppressed. But emotions don't just disappear. They go underground and fester. Eventually, this buried rage resurfaces, but it's disguised. It comes out not as a direct "I am angry," but as a narrative. Everyone always hurts me. I'm always taken advantage of. No one ever respects me. This is a classic case of anger, wearing the mask of helplessness. It's a protest that has lost its voice and can now only express itself through a story of perpetual injury. This leads us to the fourth mechanism, an external locus of control. People who adopt the victim role tend to see the causes of their problems as being almost exclusively outside of themselves. It's other people, it's bad luck, it's the system. Psychologically, this is a powerful self-protection strategy. Why? Because if taking responsibility in the past always led to punishment, shame, or a reminder of failure, it becomes far safer to avoid it altogether. Blaming the external world releases you from confronting the painful question, what can I do differently? It shields the fragile self from the perceived weight of accountability, a weight that once felt crushing and unbearable. It's a defense against the pain of personal failure. The fifth element is a deep-seated fear of autonomy. Autonomy means having agency, making your own choices. But agency also means taking risks, and with risk comes the possibility of failure. For someone who has experienced failure over and over again without any support, without anyone to help them get back up, this risk is terrifying. So the victim role, paradoxically, offers a strange kind of safety. If the world is to blame, then I don't have to try and risk failing again. If others are responsible for my life, then I don't have to make the scary decisions. This isn't laziness. This is a fortress built to protect a psyche that feels it cannot withstand another collapse. Another devastating "I told you so" from its own inner critic. Next, the sixth mechanism is what psychologists call secondary emotional gain. This is a very subtle but powerful force. While the victim role is painful, it often brings benefits that were previously missing from a person's life. It can bring attention from others, a sudden rush of care, or relief from life's demanding expectations. Sometimes it even provides a sense of moral superiority, the righteous indignation of the one who is wronged. It's crucial to understand these are not consciously calculated benefits. Nobody thinks, if I suffer, I'll get more attention. Instead, the psyche learns through simple reinforcement. When I am in pain, people pay attention. When I'm hurt, someone finally stops and listens. That simple reward is often enough to lock the pattern firmly into place, making it an unconscious go-to strategy. The seventh element is black and white relational thinking. People operating from a victim stance often see the world in rigid categories: guilty versus innocent, perpetrator versus victim. This oversimplification offers a temporary sense of clarity in a confusing world, but it comes at a huge cost. It destroys the complexity and nuance of real human relationships. There's no room for shared responsibility, for acknowledging that both people might have played a part, or for the possibility of repair. If I am the pure, innocent victim, then someone else must be the 100% evil perpetrator. This mindset protects against emotional chaos, but it also completely closes the door to real, lasting change because it prevents any form of self-reflection. And finally, the eighth and deepest level is a profound lack of experience with post-traumatic growth. People who have never had the chance to see that you can rebuild after suffering, that you can learn from pain, and that you can become stronger on the other side, remain stuck. They are frozen at the stage of the injury. For them, the trauma isn't just a chapter in their life story. It becomes the entire book. Psychologically, this is a state of being stuck, not necessarily in the past event itself, but in the meaning that the past continues to hold today. They never learned that healing is possible, so their identity remains fused with the wound. Here's the most important takeaway from all of this. The victim role does not mean someone wasn't genuinely harmed. In fact, it often means the exact opposite, that the harm was real. It was prolonged, and it was never properly acknowledged or healed. The problem isn't the past pain. The problem begins when the identity of a person who is victimized becomes a victim as a core definition of self. It's when suffering stops being a painful experience that one moves through, and instead becomes the very lens through which they see themselves and the world. Understanding this distinction is the first step for ourselves and for others on the difficult but hopeful journey from a defensive identity to an empowered one.